Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing fine. So I'm here today to give you a complete understanding of how the speaking section works in IELTS and how do we need to handle it and what are the different kinds of questions that we're going to get here and what are the different descriptive indicators or as we can call it, the parameters in simple language, right? Which the examiners are going to use in order to evaluate your responses. All right, okay, let's move on and see about IELTS speaking. Well, we're going to discuss different parts and the parameters and also a couple of samples. Well, let's start. So we'll see part 1, part 2, and part 3 of the speaking section. Also, we will see the different parameters which they use in order to evaluate your responses, and also the strategies that you really have to adopt in order to get a really good score. Okay, and also I would just introduce you to a couple of sample answers, in fact. All right, let's start. So, as first steps, let's try to understand what are the different descriptive indicators or parameters that they use in order to evaluate your responses. One is fluency and coherence, and second one is the pronunciation, and next one you have lexical resources, that is vocabulary, and also, of course, grammar. Well, so I would just introduce you to all these 4 parameters in detail in the coming slides. However, first you need to note what are the different parameters that we use. First is fluency and coherence, pronunciation, lexical resources, and grammar. Like that, okay? Well, let's continue. So this is how the descriptive indicators page look like. Okay, so let's see, these are the bands which they have allotted. Actually, it's band 7, band 8, band 9. So band 9 is the highest here, and usually people target to achieve 8+ bands. Okay, so in order to achieve a greater score here, so we need to understand what exactly they expect from us. So in the first parameter, fluency and coherence, so we would have to say that they expect us to speak fluently with only rare repetition or self-correction. So any hesitation is content related rather than to find words or grammar. That's how it is. And also, they want us to speak coherently with fully appropriate cohesive devices. This is another. And also, the lexical resources means that is the vocabulary, the kind of words that we use here. Okay, so they want us to use vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in all topics. And also, they want us to use idiomatic language naturally and accurately. So I would just explain you further what do they mean by these things. All right. And the next one is grammatical range and accuracy. Of course, here they want us to use the full and flexible range of sentence structures quite naturally without any much effort. And also, they want us to produce consistent and accurate structures. Okay, and they're okay with occasional slips. Okay, that's one. And pronunciation is the last parameter where they want us to use full range of pronunciation features. They are not focusing much on the accent that you use here. However, they want us to focus on the voice modulation, the kind of intonation, the kind of the stress that we use in the language usage, basically. And this has to be quite flexible use of these features. And the whole thing has to be quite effortless to understand. So this is the set of parameters that is basically given for band 9, which is the highest here. Okay, so our target would be to achieve this score, more or less. Yeah. Well, so let's continue from here. So in part 1 of speaking, usually this is called interaction round, where they would be asking you almost about 5 to 6 different questions. Well, and they would also be asking about 4 to 5 minutes of questions. So the total time given here is approximately 4 to 5 minutes, and there would be around 5 to 6 different questions. All right, where the examiner would ask you these questions one by one, and you would try to answer these questions in at least 3 to 4 sentences in length, and you will keep all the 4 parameters which I just showed you in mind when answering these questions. Well, okay. So now let's see a couple of questions here, and we'll also try to see some sample answers, right? Let's try with the first one. How often do you wear jewelry? Why or why not? So for this question, so answer would be something like this. Well, I don't really wear any kind of jewelry or ornaments quite often, as the kind of job I do doesn't permit me to do it. However, I wear them occasionally whenever there is a festival or any kind of special occasions at home, which really is important as it is a custom to do so. And also, I prefer to wear light jewelry on daily basis as it really keeps me quite comfortable and looks quite formal compared to the heavy jewelry which could be worn only on special occasions. Well, that's the answer for the first question, in fact. Well, the second one, what type of jewelry do you like the best? The question is here. So why? Why not? Let's see a sample answer for this. Well, I like the antique designs of jewelry most of the times, as they really look elegant irrespective of what age you are into, and it really makes you feel special compared to other people who mostly prefer to wear designer wear jewelry which is contemporary. Not only that, it also is important to look different among many different peoples and functions. So I really feel that antique designs have that appeal compared to any other designs which really make you look good. Well, that's the second one. The third one, when do people like to give jewelry in your country and why? Let's look at it. Well, there are several occasions when people in my country prefer to give ornaments or jewelries, which really have a special place in the hearts of people. So most importantly, I have seen people giving or gifting jewelries during the marriage functions, and also I can say the housewarming ceremonies, or mostly I have seen people doing so when baby showering or maybe naming ceremonies as well. So this really is important, as I said, in my country, as this custom really has a significance of giving a value to someone who is really special to us, and that's one of the most important reasons why people like to give jewelry in my country. Well, that's one more question. Then let's move on to the last one. Have you ever given jewelry to someone as a gift? Why or why not? Let's see. Well, in fact, I have never gifted any kind of jewelry anyone in my life, as personally I don't believe that anyone could impress someone with giving some kind of a jewelry as a gift. Also, I don't really feel comfortable giving such an expensive gift, which would really cost an arm and a leg for me to buy it and gift it to someone who would just forget it within a few days of giving it, or which may not have any significance in his or her life, as he or she may have it already, which may look similar to what I have already given. And not only that, it's really difficult for everyone to follow the same, as it's not possible to have everyone afford it, and I personally would not prefer to do so, as this is really against the principles which I have been following in my whole life. Well, that's how section one is going to be, right? So I hope you got some idea about how do you need to answer for section one questions. Well, okay, so how do we achieve this level of proficiency, or maybe we can say the pronunciation factors and the lexical resources, as well as grammatical ranges. So we would have to follow a certain way to do it. So I would assist you regarding that in the forthcoming classes. Well, okay, for now, let's focus on part two. So part two is basically the presentation round, where you are going to present on a particular topic that is given to you. All right. And you will have one question card usually, and you have a minute's time to prepare yourself. And you have 2 minutes complete to answer this particular question. Well, okay. So you see that this is how it looks like. You see, describe an interesting TV program you watched about a science topic. You should say what science topic this TV program was about, when you saw this TV program, and what you learned from this TV program about a science topic, and explain why you found this TV program quite interesting. All right. So you can choose to talk about something that is really close to you, or you might have followed up in the recent days, whichever you remember well. All right. That's what you need to follow on. Well, here we have to answer for 2 full minutes. Well, and you will have 1 minute time to prepare yourself. Okay. And the most important thing is that try to use the synonyms for the words that they have already used here in the question card. Okay. So, because this shows that you really have a good control over spoken way of English. All right. So the 2 minutes have to be used smartly here, where the first three questions, these are close-ended questions that have to be answered in almost about 1 minute's time, and keep the last minute for the last question, which is an open-ended question always, which needs a lengthy answer as well. Okay, and also paraphrase each of these questions as you follow it, so that the examiner knows that you really are covering up all the questions out here. Okay, so I'll try to answer this question here, so you can just listen to it. Okay. Well, I'm going to start. Well, today I'm going to talk about a very eye-catching TV program that I watched. And this was about the science background, which was almost about astronauts and how they reach different celestial places. So this was about the project Chandrayaan-2, which was launched here in India, and this was an attempt to reach the surface of the moon, and how they were quite successful in doing so, and what they did to achieve that. All right, so this TV program was about the achievement done by a group of astronauts as well as scientists here in Israel, who actually coordinated well with each other in reaching here. And I saw this TV program last month when I was at home during the lockdown. And I really learned a lot about the science here, like how astronauts do things and what they achieve from it and how they desire to achieve more. And this was quite interesting because of its attractive content and also a lot more things which I didn't know that made it quite fascinating for me to follow up this program. Also, this program was one of its kind, which I had watched recently back then, as that really kind of made me get attracted towards a career path of an astronaut, which I always wanted to become. But unfortunately, I couldn't, but I loved this program overall. Well, that was a sample answer. Okay, so that's how you have to try answering the questions here for part 2. That's how it looks like. Okay, well, that is part 2, where this is going to be a presentation round. But part 3 is actually completely different from part 2, where the examiner would ask you questions. Okay. And which is basically based on the topic of part 2, okay, which is called this discussion round, actually. And there would be 6 to 8 different questions that they're going to ask you, which are mainly based on the topic of section 2. And the time here is about 4 to 5 minutes, I can say. Well, so here also you will have to at least maintain 3 to 4 sentences for each answers. So there would be 2 types of questions here. One is opinion questions. So they would want to know, what do you think about a particular topic? And how does the society think about certain topics? So general questions. All right. So here you see the science and the public. So our section 2 question was about science topic. So here section 3 question is about science and the public. So how interested are most people in your country in science? So this is, again, the question here. All right. So you can answer this question. Well, say how interested are most people? So you can say least interested, or you can say most interested, but you will have to give reasons for everything. That's the main thing here. All right. So if you say least interested, so, well, yeah, so why do you think so? So that's important. Like that. Okay, so that's the main point. And second thing, why do you think children today might be better at science than their parents. So we may have several reasons for this, but we will have to figure out one or two reasons in order to answer this question. But while we do this, we have to be fluent and also manage the pronunciation features, along with using some really good words, which would be adjectives or adverbs or idioms, all of that, ideally. Well, so we're going to discuss these things in detail in our forthcoming classes. So today, the idea was to give you an overall view of how these sections look like, section 1, section 2, and section 3. All right. And in the next classes, we would see how these sample answers are going to be and what kind of vocabulary that we're going to use and how we can enhance our vocabulary altogether. All right. Okay. So keep practicing and keep following up this page, as I'm going to post a lot of videos about all the subsections of IELTS, and you would get to see a lot of insights about the whole test. All right. Until then, keep practicing and stay safe. Bye-bye. Thank you.